I've been posting a bunch of YouTube shorts for the past half a year, and the ones that I have the most fun making are the creature type of the day videos. Basically, I've been going through every creature type in alphabetical order. We're approaching day 100, but with YouTube shorts, I only have about a minute to talk about a certain creature type, and to stay with the algorithm, I only have about 20 seconds. I have to make my speech succinct. And for some creature types, that's totally fine, because there isn't much to say, but for other creature types, this just doesn't do enough. Don't worry, I'm totally addressing this with several long-form videos soon to come to the channel. But all this research has led me to some interesting findings. Hi, I'm Harrison, I run these parts, and let me introduce you to the biggest errata in Magic the Gathering's history. The Grand Creature Type Update. It was an update so big for Magic the Gathering that 1,197 cards were changed. 146 creature types were eliminated, and 8 were added. And then when it happened, they had the final creature type count at 216. Currently, the number of creature types that exist in Magic is around 280, but they're always adding more, especially with these secret layers that include other products. Before we dive in, some background. Erratas, for the most part, are when Magic the Gathering changes what a card says so it can remain the same. It does it for the most part. I say for the most part because we have some obvious examples like the companion cycle. This is a more functional errata. Originally, you could just cast it as if it was in your command zone. Now you have to pay 3 at sorcery speed to then put it into your hand, and then you can cast it like it's a regular creature in your hand. Now, the erratas I'm talking about aren't terribly uncommon, especially if you're looking at older cards. Magic has a distinct way that it words its cards, and every time a type of interaction happens, it has to be worded this specific way. If something was worded slightly different, well, that effect would be slightly different. Think of it in terms of a legal document. Every Magic card is a legal document, and cards are worded exactly how they're worded, so there's no misunderstanding. You can't argue that a card is worded this way, so actually this creature does 3 damage instead of 2. There's some confusions, but at the end of the day, there is a right answer. Since Magic has been a thing for 30 years, the way they've worded cards has changed drastically over the time. Early in Magic, they used to be really sloppy with how cards were worded, so people had misunderstandings all of the time. When they were testing the card Time Walk, instead of saying take an extra turn after this one, it said your opponent loses next turn. Some people thought it functioned okay, they lose their next turn, that means they skip their turn, that means I get to go back to back. And some people just thought it was 2-mana player removal. So back to the Grand Creature Type Update. Currently, if they're about to print a creature, the type line on the creature would be any super type, creature, hyphen, the creature's species, and then if the creature has any occupation. So Watley, Poet of Unity, is legendary creature, hyphen, human warrior bard. Back then, they didn't really care for that at all. Let's look at the best example in Uncle Isfan. This copy was printed in 2006, which is just before the Grand Creature Type Update, but still fits into modern conventions. Creature, human. We aren't going to talk about how this is a seemingly named character that isn't a legendary. Now, if we look at the original printing, it's Summon Uncle Isfan. His creature type line is Uncle Isfan. He isn't a human. He's just Uncle Isfan. So, obviously, they had to change this. There are a bunch of funny ones like this. Kobold Drill Sergeant was Summon Drill Sergeant. That actually adds a funny, interesting change when they updated all these creature typings, because the first printing says all kobolds. So when it got fixed and reprinted, it got changed to all other kobolds, because the first one technically doesn't count itself. This was one of the notes they had to make when they made all these changes. When Magic does erratas like this, they try to make it function like it did originally. This is why you see some old artifacts with the clause that they don't function as intended if they're tapped. Because the way it was originally printed, a continuous artifact would lose its ability. And that shows up a bunch with the creature type lines, mostly with lords. Lords are mostly used as Magic slang nowadays. They're creatures that buff every other creature of a certain type. But that slang actually comes from cards like Lord of Atlantis, where the card type was Lord. They were actually lords. So when it got made into a Merfolk Lord, the text box had to get changed. When they announced, they gave 4 main reasons behind this whole grandiose change. The first one was creatures without types. This included legendary creatures. They were summon legends, and sometimes would include this creature counts as a sliver or whatever creature type. There is a small arrow with Raksha Golden Cub where it's creature cat soldier legend. Now that's errata just legendary creature cat soldier. Other creatures without creature types include many artifact creatures. I like the original from a design perspective, like it's supposed to be an artificial representative of the actual thing, so it isn't actually what it is, but I totally understand them giving them a creature type. Another group that didn't have creature types are cards that aren't creatures but animate themselves into creatures. So think of like Treetop Village. It used to just make itself into a 3/3 creature. Now it makes itself into a 3/3 ape creature. The next big reason why this change came is because of the lack of race. They were starting to heavily enforce this system of race and occupation. An example is like Seed a Disciple. It's a wizard, but you kind of need to be something else to become a wizard. And because of this change, a bunch of creatures became human overnight. Actually, half of the cards included in the 1200 cards that got changed became human. Despite all this, we still have some problems like Soldier Token. Just a soldier. We're all just soldiers and nothing else. Classic bureaucracy. The next big reason why we got all these changes is because there was a few cards that needed a creature type line that didn't have it. Like Dwarven Warriors was originally just dwarf. Well, actually it was just dwarves, but dwarves isn't a thing. This adjustment allowed them to add warrior. This is a simple case, but they went really in depth with this. So there's other cards that include like the name bandit or something along those lines, and they added rogue. And the final, and what I think is the best reason to have this grandiose change, is to get rid of the obsolete creature types. Since early Magic was really the wild west of card design, they just went wild with what a creature type could be. This resulted in a pretty fun list. Let's go through a few. Some of my favorites include Gus, Aladdin, Monster, and Fungosaur. Now some of the changes from this list of creature types that got the boot make sense. Like bee, dragonfly, and hornet are just insects now. But it's funny to see some of this list because like shark, dog, and gamer appear on this list and have actually come full circle, are now fully supported in the game. And it's also funny because they added creature types to the game to make it fully supported, but they have since taken them out. Like Anemone and Anteater are no longer in Magic. And you may be thinking, this is such a big thing to do. Like they changed 1200 cards in this game. This is kind of early. This is like 15 years ago. So Magic was only around for about 15 years when this happened. So why would they do that? Well, the article that I've been citing for this came out about 2 weeks before Lorwyn. Lorwyn was a creature type based set, like there's a lot of cards that care about creature types, but Lorwyn also has changelings, so we needed the official card list for what a changeling could be. It's all really funny. I love weird Magic history like this, and at the end of the day they changed 1200 cards. If you thought this was interesting, make sure to check out the link in the description to the actual article that I've been reading. It covers pretty much everything I've said here, but it actually has the grand list of every card that's changed, what it was before as a creature type, and what it got changed into. As always, if you're watching this video within the first 24 hours of it going up, I will be responding to any and all comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to bolt your birds.